So I hear a lot about the burn team. It's part of the meta of this game, or one of the metas. And I want to go over my interpretation of it, what heroes I think or fighters I think should be included in it, and why I use them. So I'm going to start off with the basic premise of the burn team. Most rounds in PvP end in 2 to 3 rounds. So the burn team is good against like bosses and things of that nature, event bosses, just with burn damage. Because it will add up over time. But in PvP, the idea of a burn team is not to do damage with the burn. The idea is to enable certain skills. And so first we have to ask ourselves, how are we enabling these skills? And these two heroes are going to be Kaioshiro, and then more importantly, Amakusa. So we take a look at their skills. He has this Kayumi, which damage received from burn up 15%, which is largely irrelevant, and then debuff resistance down 20%. And when he gets to UR, he adds 1 layer at the beginning to all enemies. So what this is doing is it's making it easier with his debuff resistance, lowering that. It makes it easier from round 1 for each of your fighters to increasingly add burn. So now instead of a 50% chance, you have a 70% chance to add burn. Assuming, of course, the enemy's at 0 debuff resistance. So you're really increasing the odds that you keep on stacking up burn. And that's really why this guy is good. The damage is irrelevant. The damage received from burn is irrelevant. It's really this debuff resistance that makes him so powerful. And these buffs and debuffs are really nice. But the debuff is not the way to win this game. The way to win this game is damage. And that's just the case. The debuff teams, I'm not hugely confident in them. I don't think that that's the way to win. I think the way to win is to deal more damage to the enemy. Okay, that was a win for my boy on Clash. We are going to pretend that didn't happen. So this is the other character that is very important. So he has this Kindle, another little made-up ability that no one else has, that reduces target's burn resistance by 15%. Which also increases to 20%, and then your burn damage bonus goes up. And so this becomes key. You're basically from round 1, again, this guy's adding debuff resistance, and then this guy, when he procs, he uses his raid skill, he's going to add fire burn resistance down. So you're going to be adding stack after stack after stack. When you take these two out, or at least this guy out, you're going to see a difference in how many stacks the enemy has. And now you have to ask yourself, if burn damage is not the goal, then why do we want to add so much burn? The first character that's going to be enabled by this burn build is going to be Kagami. And we can see it with his raid skill. He detonates 1 layer of burn on target and then calculates the damage immediately. And so he's going to be doing more damage for each debuff. And then additionally with that, you have this secret scroll that when target is attacked by carrier, increases damage based on number of debuffs on target, which as far as I know burn counts as. And when we go to Ascension, we really see what a ridiculous skill that is. So I don't have this one ascended yet, or even all 5-star, but we have, like, look at this, 1 debuff on the carrier's target, current damage up 12.5%, stacks up to 5 layers. So that's 60% damage increase by having 5 stacks of burn. Plus you're reducing target debuff resistance by even more. So these, in my opinion, are the best with the burn team. You need these, because the damage is going way up on your DPS, and then any character that hits with them is just making it so much easier to add more burn. It's like a perpetual motion machine. So this is the first one. This is the more free-to-play friendly fighter for the burn build. So necessary. You need this guy on your burn team. And then the pinnacle of burn team, the reason you really should be running it, is Kazuki. Okay, Kazuki is broken. I think we all know he's broken. If you're in the Discord, if you've talked to anyone, if you've fought a match in a Zone Arena, basically everyone at the top has this guy. And this is why. There's 3 layers of Flames of Disaster, which we'll see later. And the premise of this is every single time the enemy receives burn damage, so for every stack of burn they have, once they attack, essentially, he has a 20% chance. The game rolls a 5-sided die for this guy to gain 1 flame 1 layer of Flame of Disaster, which casts his rage skill again at 3 stacks. So for every 5 burn you have on an enemy, he's basically going to get a Flame of Disaster. So every 3 enemy attacks, so the enemy has 6 attacks in a round, minus rage moves, I suppose. So basically, at least twice a round, statistically, once you start stacking up burns, this guy should be casting his rage move. Like, so realistically, it's almost like 3 times a round. And that's just why rounds end so quick in this game, is because of this guy. So he's the reason that you want all these burns, that he's the reason you want to decrease burn resistance on enemies, is you want this guy spamming his rage mover's alt just as fast as he can and doing damage. Again, he's broken, but the burn team, the premise is to enable this guy, and then on a more free-to-play level, it's to enable Kagami to do more damage. And then, so Lee, why I use Lee, he's just a sturdy tank. He's pretty hardy. Sturdy, I guess, would be the word in English. And he does a pretty good job of tanking, and he also does a little bit of damage and adds burn as well. So I think in terms of defense, he's very good for an SR. I might replace him later, but I have no plans to now. And then one little extra fun fact of why I use Kaishiro. So he has high spirits, which increases rage recovery speed by 20%. And you're like, well, that doesn't seem like that big of a buff. But it has to do with Kagami. And so I don't know where to find this other than an inventory, but if we go to Fighter and then Mountain, and we go to Kagami, we're going to see under Details. So attacking, recover 200 extra rage, and then fighters also do more damage when they have more rage. So they can overflow 1,000 to do more damage, and that's why I like Kaishiro, is because a lot of times I think he's overflowing Kagami or allowing him to use his alt in less turns than it normally would. So Kagami just gets a ton of rage when he attacks. And again, that's overflowing into more damage, which is being increased by his secret scrolls, which is being increased by his raid skill. So this to me is the peak burn team. In the 6th slot, you can use whatever you want. Rimuru, however you say her name, she's just useful for now. I'll probably replace her as well. But when she ults, the battle's pretty much over if you can make it to the round past round 2, which I often don't, as I've said. Since this is my explanation of the burn team, this is why I think you should use it, and this is how I think you should build it.